Good evening. I will call the Missoula City Council meeting for August 7th to order. If you'd please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you all. Our first item of business, as always, is roll call, and I'll note that all members are present. We have 9 members in person and 3 members remote tonight. We have minutes from the meeting of June 17th. Are there changes to those minutes? Seeing none, those will be approved as submitted. Our next item is general public comment on non-agenda items, and I invite you up. Advise everyone to please keep your comments respectful and germane to a topic that has relevance to the city, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Bryant.
Hello, my name is Brandon Wayne Bryant, and I am an OG Missoulian. Again, I'm here because of things that happened a few years ago in which I was arrested, violating my First and Third Amendment rights of freedom of speech and excessive bail, never given any restitution or justice for what happened to me. And during that process that I was waiting for my embarrassment of a court case for the city, I was attacked with a knife by the leader of the Missoula Crips, a large Samoan man. And on Memorial Day weekend, which is the weekend that I happened to, that happened before I started coming back to city council, I was jumped by 7 individuals of that same group. And the only reason that I escaped that jump was because I noticed 2 of the members that I had served jail time with that were waiting there. And I was riding my bike. And then this last weekend on Friday, I was stalked by 8 individuals who were wearing Crypt colors. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I was attacked with a knife by some violent criminal while I was waiting patiently for my court case. But, you know, after everything that's happened, I want to read something to you. You know, I talk about my military experience and my whistleblowing and stuff, but I don't think that you guys actually understand. Here's something that was written by the United States government. It's an apology to me by the Air Force, written under a book called Is Remote Warfare Moral by an Oxford lawyer who was also an Air Force major. He said, I asked Colonel Travis Norton about Bryant. Norton is a pilot who had then flown alongside Bryant and who stayed on with the Predator and Reaper community through various levels of command. He was a captain when I first served, and he's now a colonel of my old squadron. He acknowledged that the Air Force hadn't come to grips with the psychological effects of remote warfare at the time. Bryant came forward and said, I'm not well, something is wrong, and we didn't take good care of him. The Air Force basically told him to shut up and go back to work. We failed him. So how is it that the United States government can publicly apologize to me and restore the things that they took from me, but my local city council cannot? The people who wronged me cannot. The man that you guys got as evidence against me in the court of law was a fucking fraud. Excuse my language, but he's a fraud. You know, he spent 10 years stalking me and calling me a liar, and you guys that was the only evidence that you guys used against me in the court of law. And then when I tried to get justice for what happened to me and my family, I was denied. My grandfather, again, I'll say this again. He gave Highgate High School their one and only state championship wrestling title and served as a teacher and wrestling coach for a very good portion. And somebody in this room, their son was part of the Hellgate Lance. And 2 days after I was arrested, the Hellgate Lance said that I had shot out of a police car window. And then when my mom, who was working in the district at the time, went to the principal of Hellgate High School and asked for an apology, he told her to shut up and drop it. So why is it that we got a guy whose father signed the arrest warrant on me against police and military order, who is getting $125+ $1,000 in dark money? And then we got a lady who used to work, that works here, Gwen Jones, who looks people up and then who looks people up online and then attacks them in their workplace. How come I can't get restitution from what happened to me?
So you're over your 3 minutes, and and thank you for coming down tonight. And we'll see you next time.
Yes, you will definitely see me.
Next up, please state your name for the record, and could you please spell your last name as well?
Wait, yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
so
point of order. I think there needs to be.
Okay. So our rules provide for maintaining decorum in the chambers, and it's something that we need folks to do. We need you to respect that this is a meeting body where we have work to accomplish, where we need people to have the opportunity to come here and feel free to speak regardless of their point of view, and we just need to maintain that order. Okay. Ms. Anderson, do you want to speak to your point of order? I also want to note that a point of order is the purview of a member of the council to call, and does require the council member to state the purpose of the point of order. Ms. Anderson.
Yeah, thanks for that. Well, a couple different things, but I do ask that, the point of order I was calling was not simply on the speaker. Members of the audience, I agree. I understand we may not agree with what the person is speaking, but we ask for decorum as well and not to name call. So
yeah.
Thank you. Want to make this respectful for everybody, even though it's hard sometimes with what some of the comments that people are making. So
thank you for that. Okay, with that, we welcome additional comment, and please state your name, and again, please keep it to and spell your last name for us, and please keep it to 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Pate, P-A-T-E, and I'm a community organizer for Montana Women Vote. We held an event last week where we had over 75 people gather and talk about the houselessness crisis in Missoula. We encourage the city to seek more input from the community on this crisis, especially those who are directly impacted by it. I have 5 letters from community members to give you today, and I hope you listen to those who are here to testify. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Who could I give these letters?
You could bring them to me, and we can make sure that everyone gets a copy. Thank you. We'll get those distributed. Anyone else tonight? Mr. Larson.
That's Larson, Ward 3, LARSON. Just wanted to address the committee meeting and the rules of decorum that were discussed, and looks like it already came up tonight. I think it's good to have rules, and I think it's good that we follow them. Unfortunately, I think some of us have been the subject of these point of orders without the reason being stated and without much explanation for what amounted to facts being stated as opposed to personal attacks, or even if they were personal attacks, apparently the rules of decorum allow some leeway there. So being someone that has been personally muted on these calls and in these meetings, I thought that you should hear from me that I think that it's good that you're revising these, but we need to come to kind of grips with reality when we talk, such as Gwen Jones did in the meeting, saying that there were no point of orders that had been placed on people and that people's speech hadn't been limited. I haven't listened to the entire meeting, but I'd like to, personally say that I've been muted by Gwen Jones. I've been muted by Stacie Anderson. I've been muted by numerous other people on the council, and erroneously so. I've also, been charged with an obstruction charge by MPD for freedom of speech violations, of which I was found not guilty. I've also been hit by 2 cars and had the city attorney issue 1 ticket as a pedestrian. So, I mean, coming and speaking out at these meetings comes at great cost sometimes. And it's a little ridiculous when people perceive reality so differently on this council. And I think it speaks to a larger problem. And that is that, there's a lot of listening going on, but not much hearing. You know, there's not much action when it comes to the community speaking out. There's a lot of retribution that's sought on these people, and a lot of muting that goes on. So you know, I'm happy to see it lightened up, especially after the year we had at the legislature and some of the statements that were made by the same city council that continues to ban me from emailing or calling them, which I think is quite ridiculous and does impede my ability to participate in these meetings effectively. I can't speak my point at any more than 3 minutes in duration, and that's that. That's just the life I have to live with because I got hit by 2 cars and wanted to get to the bottom of it with the city attorney, the then city attorney, Jim Nugent. And yeah, it's quite dismal to interact when those are the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Anyone else tonight? Mr. Moore.
Mr. Mayor, I read with interest your paper about the Frontier Institute. I want you to know up front that I disagree with everything you said. You probably knew that, probably more than like. I ain't never heard of that outfit, so I bet you won't do it. One of his headlines, this is the headline when he was talking about budgeting for local governments. It's time for local governments to place firm limits on the growth of new spending, keeping budgets within the bounds of economic growth and what the taxpayers can reasonably afford. I love that statement. I think he's a very brilliant person. Never heard of him. I think he's the president of Frontier Institute, speaking on, in this case, Missoula. The headline of that was 200 million reasons for high property taxes. Every year, it's always the fault of the taxes. State government won't change the tax. I taught a budget profit planning control course at a university in DC one time. And I think I learned there more than I did in business. But if you make a budget and you don't have the money or the ability to get the money, you reduce the expenses. Very, very, very simple how you should do the budget. Reduce the expenses. One of you, let me know 3 minutes. One of your comments was that we don't need to cut back on government services that residents expect and value. We need a tax system that is fair and equitable for all. You've been mayor a while, you've been on the city council, several of you have been on the city council a long time. Why hasn't something already been done? Why do you keep making all these statements? And you're saying you don't want to cut the government services. What was the $10-15 million given to Lambros organization to put in for unbelievable roundabouts around the shopping center? Or give the builder of the hotels $5 million, whatever it was. Or give a convenience store operator $50,000 so he could change his laundromat to a casino. What was the government service there, and what good did it do? I suggest that there's no 50% of your quote government services, it was this exercise here, isn't being done.
And we're at, I gave you an extra minute tonight.
Oh,
You're at 4 minutes. Thanks for your comments. Anyone else tonight? Good evening.
Hello, Council. Hi, everybody. My name's Sam Kula, Kulla. I have a couple quick comments tonight. I'll try to keep it brief and respectful. First of all, I want to thank all of the mayoral candidates who spoke at the forum. I believe it was last week. That was awesome. Really appreciate that. And I also want to underscore a commentary from earlier tonight regarding the forum on houselessness at the library, which I attended. That was a really enlightening forum, and we did get to hear from a lot of people from around the community, all sides. And from my own knowledge and just sort of learning about this issue and exploring this situation of the housing crisis, which has many layers to it, I feel like as much information as we can get, particularly from people who are affected by these issues, the better, because then we can make better decisions. Finally, I'm a little nervous up here. I'd also like to announce my candidacy for City Council in Ward 3 and invite the public, members of the council, anybody who's interested to contact me at sam@kullaformissoula.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kula. Anyone else tonight? Okay, seeing no one else in the room, anyone online? Seeing none, we can move on to our consent agenda. I'm sorry, first of all, our scheduled committee meetings. So we'll announce committee meetings coming up in the upcoming week. Mr. Rabine.
Thanks, Mayor Hess. Just a moment. There we go. Folks watching at home can follow along. Let's see if I can make that a little bigger. Okay, TV screen. Ooh. There. It should help for the folks viewing at home. All right. So we're talking about committees for this coming Wednesday, August 9th. They're being held in hybrid mode. So you can either come to City Council Chambers, 140 West Pine Street, or you can join us virtually via Microsoft Teams. All of our agendas are located on the meetings portal on the website. If you go to the main city website and click on the meetings button, will take you to all of the agendas for our public meetings, including these. The top of every agenda is information about how to join virtually and a link. So let's get started with meetings for this coming Wednesday, the 9th of August. Climate Conservation and Parks Committee will start out the day at 9 a.m. to 9:55 in the morning. They'll be taking up the youth appointments to the energy and climate team. And there is also a resolution memorializing Missoula's Chinese history. The Land Use and Planning Committee will follow that from 10:10 in the morning until 11:55. They're taking up 2 items. The first is the process overview for code reform and midterm deliverables for that project to work on the city's zoning codes. And then there's project, the Icon Apartment Homes Annexation Subdivision and Master Site Plan. Sorry, we don't have location information on that. Let's see if I can, I'll see if I can add that before I publish the committee schedule, so folks know where in the city that apartment complex is proposed to be located. The Public Safety, Health and Operations Committee will meet from 12:10 to 12:30. They'll be considering a resolution to expand the size of the Tourism Business Improvement District Board of Trustees. Proposals to take that board from a 5-member board to a 7-member board. Public Works and Mobility Committee will meet from 1:30 to 2:15. They'll be taking up several items. The first is the service agreement with 2G Energy for cogeneration maintenance at the city's wastewater treatment plant. The second item is to talk about Mary Jane Boulevard and Flynn Lane speed limits. The third item is Lower Miller Creek right-of-way vacation and a speed limit reduction for that area. And finally, there'll be a presentation and resolution supporting Missoula County's promoting resilient operations for transformative, efficient, and cost-saving transportation program 2023 application. Folks, we have another transportation acronym. It is PROTECT. Surprise, surprise, transportation is full of acronyms. And finally, the Budget and Finance Committee will meet for 3 hours from 2:30 to 5:30. They'll be taking up the fiscal year 2022 audit presentation. So that's the city's annual audit. There is a resolution relating to pooled special sidewalk, curb, gutter, and alley approach bonds. I learned today that that series is actually 2022A and 2022B. There's 2 series there. And finally, we'll be taking up this city's fiscal year 2024 executive budget. It's my understanding that the committee will be discussing the city council's proposed amendments to that budget. And that is our committee schedule this week. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Are there any changes to that committee schedule? Ms. Anderson.
I don't actually have a change, but can I make a comment for the record? Just want to mention for folks who are paying attention or may watch this video, not to confuse what we're hearing in Public Works this week with the discussion that's ongoing around the roundabout, that this is literally just a discussion of possibly lowering the speed limit on Lower Miller Creek, as well as right-of-way vacation. So it's not the larger issue that we will be hearing in the upcoming subsequent committee meetings. So just I'm trying to get the word out there to let community members know, because there was some concern about wanting to be able to provide input for that. So that's not this week in Public Works, even though it has something to do with Lower Miller Creek. Thanks.
Thank you for clarifying that. Seeing no changes, the schedule will stand as presented. Next up is our consent agenda. So items on the consent agenda were approved unanimously in city council committees. We save a little time on Mondays by taking those up as a package. And Ms. Rabine will read the item, the list aloud, and we'll invite comment before we vote. Ms. Rabine.
Thanks, Mayor Hess. I'll share my screen once again so folks watching at home can follow along. Those of you in council chambers can correct my homework if I misspeak. Tonight's consent agenda has 11 items. The first is to ratify accounts payable in the amount of $1,398,613.55 for checks that are dated August 1st, 2023. We're doing that because City Council went a week without a meeting. We pay bills every week. Number 2 is to approve accounts payable in the amount of $1,784,775.86 for checks that are dated tomorrow, August 8th of 2023. Number 3 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Central House Strategies in the amount of $107,500 for advocacy and lobbying services for fiscal year 2023 through fiscal year 2025. Number 4 is to set a public hearing on September 11th, 2023 to hear the appeal of the May 3rd, 2023 Historic Preservation Commission decision regarding Fort Missoula Commons post-hospital historic preservation permit applications at 3255 Lieutenant Moss Road, pursuant to the City Council's rule found in Title 20, Section 20.85.085 sub P of the Missoula Municipal Code. Number 5 is to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Missoula, Montana, submitting to the qualified electors of the City of Missoula an election on November 7th of 2023, the question of whether the City of Missoula shall be authorized to exceed the statutory mill levy provided for in Section 15-10-420 of Montana Code annotated by permanently levying up to 40 mills per year, currently raising approximately $7 million annually for the purpose of providing additional funding or financing for fire and emergency services, including apparatus, vehicles, equipment, operations, personnel, facilities, and training. It's my understanding there'll be an amendment to that item in just a little bit at the recommendation of the administration and the chair of the committee. Number 6 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Missoula Economic Partnership for $100,000 per year for 3 years. Number 7 is the Icon Apartment House annexation subdivision and master site plan. So here we go. That was on the it was on the committee schedule. And here it is again, and we can talk about where it's at now. We're setting a public hearing on August 21st of 2023 and adopting a resolution of intent to annex the subject property legally described as Tract B of Certificate of Survey 6850, located in the east half of Section 12, Township 13 North, Range 20 West, and the west half of Section 7, Township 13 North, Range 19 West, Principal Meridian, Montana, as shown on Exhibit A of the staff report, and zone upon annexation to the Sutup-Kane area form-based zoning code, transects open space, OS open space, T3 neighborhood edge. These are zoning districts, folks. T4-0 neighborhood general open, T4-R neighborhood general restricted, and T5 mixed use center. I refer this item and the Icon Apartment Homes at the Doherty Ranch subdivision and master site plan to Land Use Planning Committee on August 9th and 23rd of 2023. Folks, that is long-winded for this project is located in the Mullen Road planning area and the Sutup-Kane planning area that's west of Reserve Street. Number 8 is to set a public hearing on August 14th of 2023 for Missoula Loft Homes, Mary Jane Major Subdivision that's located in the Captain John Mullen neighborhood, and refer this matter to the Land Use and Planning Committee, or LUMP as we affectionately call it here at the city, on August 16th of 2023 Number 9 is to set a public hearing on August 28th, 2023 on resolution setting the method of assessment and levying assessments to fund the work plans and budgets for Park District number 1 and Road District number 1 for fiscal year 24, and levying assessments for the Tourism Business Improvement District and the Downtown Business Improvement District for fiscal year 2024. And finally, number 10 is to set a public hearing on August 28th on a resolution levying a special assessment and tax upon all property that is situated within pooled sidewalk, curb, gutter, and alley approach ponds of the city of Missoula to defray the costs of installing sidewalk, curbs, gutters, and alley approaches in those projects. That's the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. As mentioned, we're recommending a change to the fire levy to reduce the number of mills levied from up to 40 per year to up to 36 per year. This is a function of the taxable values that came out today from the State Department of Revenue, and we don't need to levy 40 mills to meet the anticipated budget. So that reduction is what we'd be requesting, and without objection, we can make. Well, Ms. Anderson, do you want to make a motion to that effect as committee chair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm Dale, the voice from beyond, will correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe it's 34 mils that we need to change the language. So
I'm sorry, I believe you're correct.
yes, 34 mils down from 40 mils to meet the requisite set, or the what we're asking for $7 million. So that is change. I'd like to amend the language in the consent agenda without any objections. It can go through. And I am not the only person who has a comment on it.
Okay, so that motion is in order. That amended language is in order. So on the amendment, first. Okay, any public comment on that amendment? Oh, I'm sorry, I see two comments. Ms. Farmer on the amendment?
I don't have a comment on the amendment,
Okay.
just on the agenda item.
Ms. Vasecka? I'm sorry, Ms. Vasecka, we can't hear you. No, still can't hear you. It looks like you're unmuted, but for some reason we can't hear you. Ms. Sherrill.
I was just going to, if you can't hear her, I know she wanted to divide the question. I don't know if she can signal if that's what she's raising her hand about, since she wanted to divide 5.3. So it's possible that's what her hand's raised for.
Okay, if that's the case, we'll take that when we're back out of the amendment. Okay, so on the clerical amendment, any public comment? Mr. Larson.
Matt Larson, Ward 3, LAR-SON. I just wanted to clarify, because it's kind of confusing when you're watching probably at home, that we're asking for a $7 million raise to the budget of the fire department. And you're just clarifying that you don't need 40 mils, you need 34 mils. Right?
That's correct. It takes
$7 more million. Okay, cool. I just wanted to also note that this is also probably contributed to the factor that we don't have a permanent place to put our homeless people and our houseless people. We've been calling out the fire department every single time there's anything going on the street, and that's caused a lot of extra fire calls. It's the inactivity of this council which is added to that exacerbating circumstance. So it's just kind of ironic that you ask the taxpayer to take care of it, in my opinion. But you know, the irony isn't lost on all the viewers here. It's just another day at City Council. Thanks.
Thank you. On the amendment, Mr. Moore.
I wish I had more knowledge about the operation of city councils and cities and counties. But I'm a little bit lost how we're talking about $7 million annually, permanently. Is that by law is permanent? Why does that rate have to be permanent for $7 million? Totally opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on the amendment. So we can have a roll call vote on the amendment, and then we'll come back to the full consent agenda. And just to clarify, as was stated, the number of mills required to meet the budget as presented to the committee last week is fewer than it was before we had the values from the state. So it doesn't change the amount of money. It just changes part of the formula of the number of mills that we're levying. So on that change, we'll have a roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did you have something on this? Okay. Ms. Rayban.
Ms. Farmer has her hand up.
I believe that's on the broader issue.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Alrighty, on the motion to amend, Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Farmer,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Vasecka, she come back in? Hang on.
Yes.
There she is. All right. And West,
Yes.
would any of you like to change your vote?
Marty, you missed me, Amber, Sherrill, and I vote yes.
Okay, I marked you. Yes, so I must have been clairvoyant or just in error. I'm sorry about that. It's 12 ayes and it passes.
And the amendment passes, and we're back to the consent agenda. And we could open up for any public comment on the broader consent agenda. Mr. Larson.
Just wanted to talk about the claims first. There's a lot of stuff on the claims. There's one from the consulting group that's on the consent agenda tonight for $2,000. I don't think that we should be I think we'd have better luck at a Keno machine than with this consulting group personally at the legislature as it's stacked right now, but you know, go for it. And then there's consulting services from HDR Engineering to the tune of $56,000 for MRA per professional services. Just wondering what that's about. There's DLT Solutions, which is a $32,000 subscription for the IT department. I don't know what that does, but it sounds pretty cool. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's $22,000 for my favorite website of all time, Engage Missoula. Now, I've made websites before, but none of them for $22,000. And especially not for what I deem to be essentially just a catch-all that moves comments 7 days in a row. Like it basically catches all the comments and then every 7 days moves them to the agenda. So I don't really see what Engage Missoula really does, except it's just essentially a PR campaign for you guys to put out the pet projects on and trap people's public comments on, because they don't really actually go to the agenda. They just stay on Engage Missoula, which is kind of useless. Like I don't know. I don't really understand Engage Missoula and why we're spending $22,000 on a website, but I don't know. I'm from the land of GoDaddy where you can get one for 99 cents. There's the other issue of the Missoula Economic Partnership. I tend to side with Councilperson Carlino here. We have real problems with real financial issues, and as you all say to us, it's a hard budgeting year. So why are we throwing out some money to an upstart business, especially at a rate that we don't need to be throwing it out at? We could give them $50,000 instead of $100,000, and that's still pretty good in my book. Probably start a business for that, I think, but I don't know. And then what else is on there that I wanted to talk about? Excuse me. Oh yeah, just we've already touched on the fire levy, but yeah, I think that we could be spending our money a little bit more wisely as it concerns this houselessness and homelessness issue, and that could prevent a lot of unneeded calls to EMS and fire department and police. But again, it's just like it's an easy call to just give all our firemen a raise and
That's
keep on pushing around homeless people. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else on the consent agenda? Mr. Moore.
I'm wrong, but I think I heard you're writing a check to the MRA. God, I hope it's not true. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing no one else in person or online for public comments, we'll go back to council comments and have Ms. Farmer and then Ms. Vasecka.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to mention on item 5.5, the fire levy resolution for the fire department. Out of an abundance of transparency, I just wanted to mention and put on the record that I am married to a city firefighter, and I do plan to vote on this, and I look forward to seeing it on the ballot. Then we can hear from our constituents on whether they support it or not. But I just wanted to put that out on the record to be extremely transparent.
Thank you. Ms. Vasecka?
Thanks. Is my microphone working now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to separate 5.3 about the hiring and contracting a lobbyist program. I mentioned a lot about it during that committee meeting, and since my internet's spotty, I'd be happy to answer any questions for any constituents that are concerned about that, but I will be not voting in favor of that tonight.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anyone else on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, we can have a roll call vote, Ms. Rabine, on items 5.1 and 5.2, as well as 5.4 through 5.10.
Okay, on the consent agenda with that amendment to item 5.5, Carlino, or excuse me, Becerra is where we're starting.
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Farmer,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Vasecka,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
and Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, that means the consent agenda is approved with 12 ayes.
And on the item 5.3. Oh, Ms. Rabine, you're muted.
So I get for hitting that mute button. Carlino,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Farmer,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Vasecka,
No.
West,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 11 ayes and 1 nay on item 5.3.
Okay, and that item passes as well. And we can move on. I want to thank everyone for the unanimous vote on the fire levy. I think that's really a wonderful thing. Thank you. We can move on to the comments from city staff, agencies, community forum, and other city entities, and there are none of those, nor are there any special proclamations or any items up for final consideration. We have a number of public hearings tonight, and these are primarily budget related, but the first one is on a low-income housing tax credit application. This is an application, this is a public hearing that is required in order to get public input for the Montana Board of Housing, but does not impact city operations and is not, does not require or provide the opportunity for any city input. So this is really a vehicle for us to collect feedback and provide it to the State Board of Housing. And we have Emily Harris-Shears tonight to introduce that item and lead the public hearing. Ms. Harris-Shears?
Hello, good evening. I'm Emily Harris-Shears, the Senior Housing Policy Specialist with Community Planning, Development, and Innovation. And as Mayor Hess gave a great intro, tonight's public hearing is an opportunity to hear community perspectives and input on whether the proposed rehabilitation of the Bridge Apartments meets a community housing need. Blue Line Development is applying for 9% tax credits from the Montana Board of Housing. And in addition to seeking community voice tonight, this also satisfies the state of Montana's public hearing requirement for tax credit applications and the property tax exemption under Montana Code Annotated Section 15-6-221. And to just provide some brief background and context on the Bridge Apartments, the city utilized funds from the Missoula Redevelopment Agency to purchase the Bridge Apartments from Western Montana Mental Health in 2021 to provide the use and affordability to protect the use and affordability for tenants. The city solicited potential buyers through a request for proposals and selected the proposal from Blue Line Development to enter an exclusive 5-year development option to allow for a feasibility analysis of redevelopment to maximize density and use. And Blue Line has determined that due to the new census tract boundary lines, which disqualify this building from applying for 4% tax credits and being eligible for those, that the best route is to fulfill the primary goals of protecting current tenants and future use of an income restricted property is to apply for 9% tax credits and do a building rehabilitation to preserve the existing 20 units. And city leadership and staff support this recommendation and have provided letters of support for their application. And I just want to center us in understanding why we host these and why we support these applications. The city's adopted housing policy, A Place to Call Home, elevates the importance of preservation and the roles the city council and the city staff can play in advocating for more tax credit investment in our region. While there is no required action from council tonight as a result of this public hearing, hosting it supports project requirements and in turn their eligibility to receive tax credits. So I'm joined tonight by Jason Bowles, and I'll kick it over to Jason to share details. But thank you for your support in hosting tonight's public hearing, and we look forward to hearing from the public.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Thank you, Emily. I'm Jason Bowl with Blue Line Development, BOAL. Blue Line is a local affordable housing developer, and we do low-income housing tax credit projects throughout the Mountain West. We are proposing the acquisition and rehab of Bridge Apartments. The property currently does not pay property taxes, and we have proposed the same structure to Montana Board of Housing in our low-income housing tax credit application. The development consists of 21 bedroom units, and we have committed to serving tenants making 30% of area median income or less. We've also committed to 50 years of affordability, which is the maximum amount we can do within our application. As a part of our application, we had a market study conducted by Pryor and Associates. It found that in Missoula, rent has increased over 4.8% every year for the past 5 years. There's currently a 1.5% vacancy rate. And the city of Missoula needs a little over 1,100 additional units serving those making 30% of area median income or less. In our proposal for the rehab, we will include replacement of all major systems and a complete rehab of all the units, including upgrades for energy efficiencies and solar panels for the entire property. Timeline-wise, the Montana Board of Housing makes their award determination on October 23rd of this year. If awarded, we plan to start the rehab in the spring of 2024. And then complete the project in the spring of 2025. The Missoula Housing Authority currently provides tenant-based vouchers to the project, and they've committed to making those project-based upon award of financing through MBOH. And I'm just here to answer any questions that you all might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So with that, let's do council questions first, as that might inform the public hearing. Mr. Nugent.
Thanks, and I appreciate the update. Out of curiosity, and I hope that we aren't in this situation, what is our plan if we don't get the 9% tax credit?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We, as Emily stated, we do have a 5-year development opportunity, and I think we'll evaluate the market next year. If the qualified census tract changes, and that's dictated by HUD, we might have the opportunity to extend the process. From
Any additional questions from council? Ms. West?
Thanks. I felt like we ran out of time during our committee meeting, which was probably my fault. But I had two questions left over from that meeting. And my first one was if residents were going to be temporarily rehoused during the remodel, and if they are, what that plan is. And then I have one more question.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So each tenant has a voucher right now. We will work with the housing authority to find those units or find units for those tenants. We also have about $40,000 baked into our application budget to handle any issues with temporarily relocating them. Right now, we have a plan to displace 5 people at a time, 5 units at a time, and rehab those units and then move them back in. But we will work with a third-party consultant on the rehab or on the proposal for the relocation.
Okay, so my second question, I think has to do with maybe the AMI composition that's currently there and how it might shift. So my understanding is that the current residents are all very low income, and also that currently the units prioritize people that have mental health challenges. And so I was curious if, obviously it's going to be affordable for a long time still, but if we could see a difference in what tenants are prioritized in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. There's not going to be any changes to the tenant selection plan, so we're intending to serve the same folks that are living there currently. And to the respect of the AMI levels, those aren't changing. We're still going to be serving 30% or less of AMI.
Thank you. Additional questions? Ms. Anderson.
Thanks so much. My question, Ms. West's question actually sparked mine, but how long are you anticipating the rehab of each? I know the project is 5 at a time, but for each individual unit, how long for?
Yeah, and that's a really difficult question to answer if we haven't opened the walls yet or anything. But right now we have a plan for, I believe, 2 to 3 months per section, and then they would move back into those after that period.
May I have a follow-up? In regards to the displacement of the folks whose units you will be renovating, within that kind of baked in application costs, I think there might be needed for assistance in moving, storage. I mean, some of the folks, this will be a major disruption to their life. So outside of just, obviously making sure that they have another voucher to use, that kind of move out, move in, kind of what wraparound assistance will be provided.
Yeah, that's great. And that's kind of the $40,000 that we have within our budget right now is just kind of a ballpark estimate. Obviously, that can change with the costs and of different individuals. And you mentioned storage. So yeah, all of those costs would be covered by our project. All those temporary relocation costs will be covered.
Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no additional questions, we can open the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Bull. Anyone care to comment on this proposed tax credit application? Seeing none in the room, as well as none online, we'll close the public hearing and take any comments from council members. Ms. West.
I just want to state for the record, when this goes to Helena, that I'm in support of this project. I think these are some of our most vulnerable units in the community, which is why the city stepped in to protect these in the long term. And I really appreciate that Blue Line is willing to take on this project. And I have the utmost respect for all of our affordable housing providers that go through the 9% tax credit process. It is brutal. I know some of us have gone to Helena to watch and testify. And the one time I have gone, my anxiety was so high that my stomach hurt. So I really admire the people who are willing to try for this funding year after year, because often it takes more than 1 year to get funding for a project. And I really hope we get this on the first time around and not the second or third.
Thank you, Ms. West. Ms. Jones.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to Blue Line for taking this project on, and the bridge apartments are just very important in Missoula. I'm glad the city was able to step in and facilitate keeping them as affordable housing for a very vulnerable group. And I just wanted to echo and build on what Ms. West said. The 9% tax credits is application. It's very competitive. It's difficult. So people who do this kind of development, it's just a ton of work. And I appreciate that they will lean in and do it. And frankly, it all speaks to a bigger issue, which every time I've gone to Helena to the meeting of the Board of Housing where they address these issues, there is way more need than there are tax credits. And that is something that I think our state could look at increasing the capacity, because if there are potential projects out there and people can frame them the right way and have worked them up and it will benefit communities, they shouldn't be turned away. So I just wanted to put a plug in there for people to be paying attention to the bigger issue also.
Thanks, Ms. Jones. Anyone else tonight? All right. I'll just agree with my colleagues. I appreciate Blue Line stepping in and making the application, and appreciate all the work of city staff to make this happen. Sorry?
Yes,
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I'll just wrap up and then come back to you. So appreciate all of the work to make this happen, and another great example of what public and private sector can do working together. So best of luck, and we'll be there to support your application as well. Ms. Anderson.
Thanks so much. You took my public-private partnership line, but yeah, I just want to again add my thanks, add my voice of support. I think that it is, as Ms. Jones said, an opportunity that I really think I wish the legislature would have taken. I know there were some bills in this last legislative session that didn't make it through that would have expanded this program, because I think it is an excellent use of funding and a funding source that's creative, and there's a huge need, and especially for the bridge apartments. I was on council when we were able to save those from going to the open market. And as Ms. West said, this is serving the most vulnerable, some of the most vulnerable in our community. And obviously none of us are, this doesn't solve all the problems. There is plenty more need, but keeping these particular folks in their homes and upgrading them so that they are efficient and nice and meeting other climate goals is really important work. And we want these units we've saved them to be permanently affordable for many decades to come, but they now need to structurally stand that test as well. And so this is really an important project. And yes, best of luck. And we'll be sending you all the positive yes votes on October 23rd that this project will be selected. But I think it's a model the other communities should look at in terms of this particular project, and hope that we can build more of these, because the need in our community and across the state is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, this is not an action item, so with no further comment, we can move on. Thank you again, Mr. Bull and Ms. Harris-Shears, and again, best of luck. We can take the next 5 public hearings together, and those are all resolutions regarding fees. And I'll turn it over to Logan McGinnis to introduce these items.
Hello, I'm Logan McGinnis, Deputy Public Works Director for Utilities for the city. So the first item is the resolution establishing the county wastewater meter fee and refundable deposit. So in wastewater, we want to bill everybody for the volume of flow that they send to our facility. So we have a lot of customers out in the county, around the Y and out in the Mullen Road area that are sewer customers, but not water customers. And so we don't have a water meter that we're billing that we can use that information for sewer billing. So as a multifamily or commercial property develops out in that area, we have been requiring them to purchase a meter that our system will then read and we can use for billing purposes. Hasn't really been working very well. What makes a lot more sense is for them to come directly to us. We've been requiring them to purchase it from the vendor. and the vendor doesn't really have inventory. And so basically we want them to come directly to us and purchase it. That way we'll have the information that we need to be able to read the meter. So, they still need to install it, and then we need to make sure that it's installed in a way that will read properly. So that's why we want to include this refundable deposit, that once the meter's up and reading, then they get the money back. So that's the basics of what we want to do here.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. And we can just move right through them. And if anyone has questions, I'll flag those.
Okay. The next one, resolution establishing the water special facility buy-in fee. This is left over from Mountain Water. Mountain Water had entered into hundreds of contracts with developers to sort of buy back the facilities after they installed them. And the city is continuing to honor a lot of those contracts. Some of them were settled as part of the acquisition, but a few of them came along with what were called special facilities. And in those instances, a developer installed facilities that were more than what they were required to do. And then they were promised that as other developers connected to those facilities, they could get a buy-in back for that additional investment. And so there's 3 of those, and we've continued to honor those. But we thought it made the most sense to actually, since it is a fee, all fees should be created through resolution. So this is really kind of a cleanup to basically say, look, that the council needs to be aware that these fees are being charged. So that's kind of the purpose of this resolution. It's not creating a new fee. These are just kind of left over from the Mountain Water days, and there's 3 of these that we're continuing to collect on. And I guess I should point out that Public Works is actually one of the beneficiaries. So sewer development fees were used in a pretty significant amount to pay for the water mains that went out 3rd and 7th Street. And, with the promise that sewer development fund would be refunded as folks connected and, utilized those mains that they didn't have to pay for. So I did want to make note of that one of the quotes developers that will benefit from the special facility fee is the sewer development fund to get repaid in its investment. Moving on to the next one, if that's okay, is the resolution establishing the West Reserve stub fee. This, similarly, the city's been collecting these since 2007 when the sewer main was installed in 3rd Street. Stubs were stubbed out to a number of private properties that weren't necessarily ready to connect to them. But, sewer development fund expended the funds to put those stubs out with, the idea that they would get paid back if any of those developers utilized those stubs. The council was well aware that this was going on. It was part of the presentation about the project, but we started looking, we could never find an actual resolution authorizing us to collect this fee. So that's the purpose here, is to keep doing what we're doing, but to have it following the appropriate process with a resolution. The next one, resolution increasing the compost tipping fees. So out at the compost facility, part of the revenue that we collect is from individuals, companies, bringing green waste. If you get a pickup load of branches or your lawn clippings, etc. Currently, we would charge you $7, and we've been charging that for more than 10 years. And so we're basically just trying to get caught up on fees for those the tipping fees. So there's a schedule in the resolution of how we propose to modify those fees. And the point is, the purpose is for the compost facility and the wastewater division to be self-sustaining, that we want to charge fees to cover the cost of operating. And lastly, we have a resolution increasing the hauled waste fee. So hauled waste is basically, there's companies that pump septic systems for rural residents that aren't connected to city wastewater. So those septic tanks have to be pumped every several years. These come from all over. We have folks from Mineral County, folks from Ravalli County, and some from Missoula County that haul this waste into our facility. Then the other types of waste, like porta potty companies will bring these wastes to our facility, and folks that pump grease interceptors, like from downtown restaurants, will also pay this fee. So this fee hasn't increased for more than 10 years either. It creates, the hold waste is a pretty significant burden on our operation. And, we spend a lot of time and effort kind of dealing with these wastes. So I feel it's very appropriate to increase these fees as well. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. And with that, I will open the public hearing on items 9.2 through 9.6. Anyone who has comments on any of those are welcome to come up and get those into the record. Seeing none, this public hearing will be held open and taken up for final consideration next week. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. McGinnis, and we can move on, and we'll see you for final consideration next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our 7th public hearing is the kickoff for our fiscal year 2024 budget hearing, and this is capping off or beginning to cap off a lot of the work that you all have been doing in council committee. And I think Ms. Griffin has a presentation. And I'll get us started here. So, tonight is the kickoff to our formal public hearing process for our fiscal year 2024 budget. We, of course, have been working on this for hundreds of hours at the staff level and many hours and many days of work here in council, and grateful for your due diligence and all the work that you've put into this budget over the last month and a half or so. We've got some great materials on the website, and we'll go over those in a bit here in terms of ways that members of the public can access information about the budget. And we've had some really great informative presentations over the last number of weeks from the various departments presenting their new proposals. And those presentations are archived on the website, and that information remains available. So tonight will be a little bit of a higher level summary overview of material that you all have heard already, and this is really for the benefit of the public process. And then we'll go through the process and timeline for adoption. So again, we work hard to deliver the core services that our residents need and want, and we work hard to strike a balance between delivering these core services and innovating for the future. And that work is outlined in our strategic plan, and it's outlined in our budget. I want to start just by noting that our property tax system, as we've all been talking about, is fundamentally broken in the state of Montana. Back in the 1980s, we had multiple lumber mills operating multiple shifts per day. We had low residential property values. We didn't have any tourists, or very few tourists. Today, that industrial base economy just doesn't exist anymore. We have millions, 3.5 million tourists to Missoula each year, and our property values are soaring through the roof. We have a property tax system that's based on an economy that just doesn't exist anymore, and that's the framework that we're dealing with when we budget for local government expenditures. We see a number of tax shifts in the state of Montana as well. Those shifts have been really problematic for residential property taxpayers and small commercial property taxpayers in cities like Missoula and Bozeman and other cities, particularly around the western part of the state. In 1999, about 40% of our property tax base in Missoula County was from residential property sources, and in recent years that is about 60%. So we've seen that shift of burden from commercial taxes to residential taxes, and we need thoughtful tax reform at the state level. And unless and until we have more diversified sources of revenue, cities and towns around the state are going to continue to struggle to fully fund local government. And that funding is going to continue to be heavily dependent on property taxes. Lee, could you go to the next slide, please? So our budget this year is lean. It is based on those constraints that I outlined, but it does reflect our values as a community with targeted investments in the things that we care about. We're investing strategically in programs and projects that will move the needle on our priorities. And of course, those lens priorities that we have, as outlined in the strategic plan, are housing, climate, and equity. Our strategic plan distills those values, and our budget priorities come out of that process. We've got 4 strategic pillars in our strategic plan, which are outlined on the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, these are the lenses. So of course, the lenses, as you all know, are the goals that we look to implement in every project that we bring forward. We use these lenses to measure our progress. We use these lenses to check our work and to make sure that our goals are considered with every city decision. The pillars are on the next slide. And we'll go over these in greater depth in each of the areas. The first one on the next slide is community safety, health, and well-being. So we focus our efforts in public safety, health, and well-being by ensuring that our core levels of service are maintained, our programs are innovative and efficient, and outcomes are clear and measurable. My personal top priority, as articulated in this budget this year, is opening an emergency shelter on a year-round basis. Opening the Johnson Street shelter is also the highest priority for our nonprofit partners who provide services to people living without shelter. We're partnering with Missoula County to fund that ask, and that's a $1.7 million operating ask. And we're working on improvements to that facility to ensure that it's ready for year-round use. That item, those contracts will be coming to council in a few weeks, and you've seen the sheltering services budget a couple of weeks ago. Or last week, I guess. That also includes money in the Parks and Road District for support for staff and public safety with security in the neighborhoods, including garbage hauling and hazard pay for employees as well. And that supports the suite of services in that sheltering and houselessness services realm. Our crisis intervention program, based in the police department, is funded at $313,000 to maintain its current level of service, and our mobile support team is also fully funded at $1.3 million to maintain its current level of service. In the attorney's office, we're continuing to fund a formerly grant-funded crime victim advocate position with local funds, and we're adding a new position with additional grant funds. These services are vital for our service. They're vitally important for victims of crime in our community, and we're glad we're able to fund those. Our next pillar is our organizational excellence and resilience pillar. The City of Missoula fosters an inclusive, transparent, and nimble organization that provides support and training for its employees and works collaboratively to provide high-quality, responsive, and innovative services efficiently and effectively. We know that our employees thrive and that we approach greater efficiencies as an organization and do better as an organization when we retain our qualified employees. So this budget includes 3.5% cost of living increase for non-union staff, and we're continuing to negotiate with our various unions. You all passed recently a police department contract a few weeks ago, providing a meaningful bump for our police department. We are pleased to be able to increase police department wages by about 10%, and that gets us closer to market wages. We've been drastically behind in a market study on our public safety wages, and we're able to take a big bite out of that this year, and grateful in particular to the Police Association, the Police Officer Association, for their bargaining very much in good faith and very productive bargaining session, and look forward to continuing to work through the rest of the units in the coming weeks. We're advocating funding for the ongoing work of our justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion work that was previously funded with one-time funds, and this transfers that over. It continues. This is a continuation of one-time funds, but does continue that for one more year here. We're looking to create efficiencies within our central services department with a new payroll system. Our financial systems and our payroll systems are antiquated, and these upgrades will allow us to create efficiencies within those departments. In the coming year, we will begin design work and remediation in earnest on the former federal courthouse, which will become the new home for most city functions and many county functions. And we'll be working through that as a function of this budget. And we'll engage a consultant to develop a comprehensive constituent services engagement and communications plan for council and the administration. We'll use the results of that needs assessment as foundations for improving our communication and engagement systems and building off the innovative improvements with things that we have made, such as Engage Missoula, which is far more than a website, but an engagement platform that really provides the opportunity for community members to really learn about stuff going on in their community and engage more deeply than previously available. That'll involve adding staff capacity in the future for communications. It'll also involve adding staff capacity for work around data analysis and work around dashboarding and work around performance metrics. And this is the first step of that to really get a plan in place to get those programs off the ground. Our economic health pillar the city of Missoula fosters an environment that creates partnerships that result in increased economic vitality for the community. We anticipate depositing nearly $5 million into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund through a combination of sources. That's through the sale of city-owned land, that's surplus land, as well as general fund support. And we'll continue to work on our goal of 100% clean electricity by 2030, which includes work on the renewable rate option, which is a partnership between the city of Missoula, Missoula County, and the city of Bozeman. We'll take advantage of grants and contracts whenever possible, and in the coming weeks, we'll talk a little more about how to do that as well. We're pleased to contribute $30,000 to United Way's Child Care Advantage program. This is based out of the former Cold Spring School, and it'll provide space and administrative resources to daycare providers in the community and help them work together a little more efficiently by taking on some shared services like payroll, ordering supplies, managing wait lists, and other services that will give our child care providers a leg up. We're budgeting for a proactive lobbying strategy, and you all approved that contract recently and paid a bill tonight. And so I'm confident that that'll make it through in the final budget. But I think we're looking forward to a new way of lobbying, a new way of engaging with our state government. The legislature does its work every 2 years, but then the work of state government doesn't stop, and we have opportunities to continue to engage with legislators in the interim and with our state departments, and to bring the city of Missoula's concerns to our state government, and to create partnerships and working relationships during the interim. And we will work with the National League of Cities, the U.S. Department of Labor, and local partners in Mountain Home, Montana, Missoula County, and the Missoula Economic Partnership and Climate Smart Missoula to develop a pilot program to create a pipeline for clean energy and infrastructure jobs. And that has an end goal of producing good jobs that pay well for disadvantaged members of our community, with the pilot project focusing on single mothers in the Mountain Home program. And our fourth and final pillar is the community design and livability pillar. And this area, the goals in this area are to create policy and support developments that promote economically and environmentally responsible growth, with priorities on equitable, responsive, and adaptive outcomes that put people in place first. The fiscal year 2024 budget accomplishes that in a variety of ways. First and foremost, it funds the completion of the Our Missoula Growth Policy Project and Code Reform Project. This of course will guide how our community will look into the future, and funds the work around the growth policy, the code reform, and the process audit and process reform. Probably the single most impactful thing we can do in this budget to create conditions where the private sector builds additional housing that Missoulians can afford. We'll update our parks, recreation, open space, and trails plan to create more urban standards for our parks as our city grows. That's slated for $415,000. Our existing parks plan is decades old. It is based. It needs to be updated, and this new approach to plan will put the city's lenses at the forefront. Finally, recognizing the climate and human health benefits will elevate our urban forestry program, including an innovative tree inventory. The pillar also addresses infrastructure, and there's a lot of good work going on in infrastructure development in our community. This budget includes significant investments in the city's infrastructure, and much of that is funded, fortunately, through state and federal grant sources. The city is positioning itself well to seek funding from the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act, along with other sources. And we've built a team in our Grant Central Station team that can find opportunities, submit competitive grant applications, and administer funds that are awarded. So our infrastructure projects set for this fiscal year include the completion of the first phase of the Mullen Area Build Grant, totaling $2.9 million this fiscal year. We'll continue to invest a little over $5 million in our sidewalk and mobility programs, and that's in our sidewalks and greenways. And we'll make investments for improvements for all modes of transportation on South Avenue. This is in partnership with Missoula County with a federal Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. That's $9 million of federal funds that's leveraged with $2 million of city funds. The Missoula Redevelopment Agency will invest $7.7 million in public infrastructure for public benefit. These are for projects that such as sidewalks or water infrastructure, specifically $3.5 million for the Bitterroot Trail Bridge project in URD 2 and $2.4 million for the Bitterroot Trail Lighting project in URD 3. Missoula Water will invest $10.2 million in infrastructure as we continue to keep the promises we made when we acquired the water utility. We have turned the corner on leakage this year, and our leakage rate continues to go down. That reduces our environmental impact by reducing wasted water and reducing the amount of electricity we spend to pump water, and we'll continue to do that work. We've invested, we're going to invest $7.2 million in our wastewater utility collection and treatment system. And in Parks and Recreation, we will repair and reopen the Northside Pedestrian Bridge this fiscal year, and that's at an additional $2 million. That bridge has been closed pending emergency repairs, and we'll be pleased to get that open and get that critical connection to the north side back in service. We'll invest $1.5 million in the Park Fork River through an access project funded by a federal grant. This is through the Economic Development Administration and with our partners at the Missoula Downtown Foundation. And we're providing match for Federal Transportation Alternatives Grant to help reduce operational costs with deferred repairs to sidewalks, wells, irrigation systems, fences, and pathways. And again, we'll focus our grant writing efforts on electrification, sustainability, and resilience with an overall goal of reducing our climate impact. So the budget is focused on the goals outlined in the new strategic plan. It is a lean budget and a challenging budget year, but we are able to, through this prioritization, we're able to tick off a lot of the goals that we have had in our strategic plan. And we're setting ourselves up, I believe, for future years in a positive manner. The recently awarded $25 million raise grant, which will provide the most significant public investment in downtown infrastructure in decades, is a prime example of this approach. As I mentioned at the budget kickoff, I like this quote by late Senator Paul Wellstone of Minnesota, that we all do better when we all do better. In Missoula, we care about people and place, and we, as city government, make investments in our community's future. This budget reflects those values, and it directs investment toward our shared goals. We, the thing I'd leave us on is that we're getting eaten alive by inflation, and a lot of organizations are. Hot mills or emulsified asphalt is up 72% in 5 years. Police calls for service are up 50% in 5 years. I'm sorry, fire department rather calls for service are up 50% in 5 years. And the costs that government entities face are oftentimes increase at a different rate than other costs. We are doing our best to balance some challenging priorities this year, and those inflationary struggles are real, and they'll continue to be real. The one thing I'll say is that when the DOR notices went out, I like to say that folks received information that they really didn't like from the Department of Revenue that was inaccurate. And now when they get their tax bills, they'll receive information that they're still probably not going to like very much, but it's a lot more palatable than the doomsday projections by the Department of Revenue. We will see tax increases this year, and that's a function of those inflationary increases. But we've done our best to hold those to be as moderate and approachable as possible. With that, I would turn it over to Ms. Griffin to talk through the budget process from here on out and our calendar from here on out.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to walk through our budget adoption process so folks in chambers and folks watching from home understand the steps that it takes for City Council to approve this budget. The budget process actually begins many, many months ago in February when we begin to review the prior year's budget performance. And I always like to say it's a living, breathing document, the budget, because we always have to be responsive to changes that are happening. So we start that in February. We don't approve the budget until late August, and then we have the ability to amend the budget during the fiscal year. The budget adoption process relies on public hearings and budget resolutions. So tonight we have opened the budget public hearing, and we'll keep that open tonight and then the City Council meeting on next Monday on August 14th with the hope for final approval with final consideration on the August 21st meeting. State law requires that we notice these public hearings, and we have to notice for specific items. These are the annual appropriations. That's the total dollar amount that is being approved. The permissive medical levy, which is a levy that helps pay for the health insurance fee increases that we might have. I will be presenting on those next Wednesday. Budget and work plans for our various special districts. These are the road district, the park district. This year, a new one is the Missoula Local Government Building Special District, otherwise previously referenced as the Federal Building District, our Tourism Business Improvement District, and the Downtown Business Improvement District. We will approve resolutions fixing the appropriations and the CIP, including the budget and work plans for those respective districts. We will ask City Council to also pass a resolution levying general and special taxes and any resolutions that we might need to increase certain fees. So up next, we have a few more meetings. This Wednesday in Budget and Finance, we will receive a presentation from the mayor with the final budget after those taxable values have been able to be imported into our budget documents and calculated. I will also present on various fee resolutions. I'll discuss ARPA and what we've spent ARPA on and what is in the FY24 budget, as well as our CIP. This is our community investment program with a lot of those large dollar, especially infrastructure projects. And City Council has been submitting various budget amendments and requests. These are all now on our budget website, just under all of the other department presentations and their budget requests. Then again, today we've got a budget public hearing. Next Monday, another budget public hearing. On August 16th, we will have our final Budget and Finance Committee meeting. We will review peer city taxes, see what is happening with other cities around Montana. And hopefully we will wrap up council deliberations. And I say hopefully to wrap that up because we have final consideration on August 21st. And in order to meet our statutory requirements, we do need to approve the budget by this date so that we can then send the budget to the state as well as to the county for levying those taxes and assessments and getting those on the respective tax bills. But one more meeting after the adoption of the budget will happen on August 28th. And this was set earlier tonight during the consent agenda, and this will be the public hearing and resolutions levying the various taxes and assessments for the BID, Business Improvement District, TBID, and the Road and Park District. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. And I just want to underscore, so today, first Monday in August, we did receive our taxable values from the state. We are not in a position to have those numbers in a usable format in the budget yet. So that final budget presentation will be Wednesday, and that's when we'll have the final list of what's recommended to be funded and not funded for your review and consideration. So with that, any process questions from council before we open the public hearing? Ms. Jones?
Yeah, we are going to be hearing amendments this Wednesday, of the amendments that have been submitted to date. And we also can hear amendments the following Wednesday. There is a deadline on those. I believe it's noon on August 15th, Tuesday. So people will have had fair amount of time with the final proposed budget, but we've had a lot of information on the budget. People have a good sense of it now. You're just completing the final fine tuning of it. In the meantime, if you're thinking of amendments, the sooner you get them submitted to me, the better we can get them scheduled.
And I just want to say that we really appreciate those have been coming in, and it's been really helpful to have the time to review those and provide some information rather than just reacting on the fly. So thanks for getting those in. Okay, with that, we can open the public hearing. And again, this hearing will go for a couple of weeks, and so opportunity tonight as well as at the committee. But you're welcome to come on up tonight and provide your comments.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Kathy Dayshaw. I live in Ward 5, and I'm on the Moose Can Gully Neighborhood Council. Back in 2018, I was here talking about property taxes. It's something that none of us really want to talk too much about. But in 2016, we calculated what the average home in the Linda Vista neighborhood would pay in property taxes. And over 20 years, that came up to $120,000 for one house. And that was in 2016 before the DOR got a hold of our assessment values. And now I'm sure that amount would be a lot more. So I know you can't answer questions that I posed during this, but you know, I went through the budget. I saw a lot of consultation fees and lobbying fees, and I hope that you are trying to attract more business and industry to kind of combat what we've lost. And we've lost a number of businesses in Missoula, just like restaurants, for instance, you know, with Red Robin and Denny's and a number of them closing. I hope that you're actively seeking to get more businesses here, because Kalispell is putting us to shame. They've got, you know, if you go up North Kalispell, there's a lot of businesses there. They're contributing more to their tax base, I think. And the homeowners in Missoula there's many of them that are really struggling. I talked about how my parents were struggling back in 2018 when theirs were 5,000 at that time, 5,000 a year. And so as you go through this process, please keep in mind that there are a lot of people that are really struggling with the rising property taxes. And I know that a lot of it was the last two assessments from the DOR. However, maybe we all want police and fire. So if those are the priorities, maybe we can hold off on a couple sidewalks and give more funding to the police department. You know, I'm not privy to the financial part of everything the city does, but really just asking you to consider what the homeowners are going through, especially with this last reassessment, and maybe find some ways to get us some more revenue besides just the homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dayshaw. Anyone else tonight? All right, seeing no one else in the room, we'll keep the public hearing open, and you're of course welcome to contact council via email or at Wednesday meetings as well. And again, we'll keep the public hearing open, and at this time, any questions from council? Seeing none. I'm sorry, Michelle, my peripheral vision is.
No, that's okay. I came in late. I appreciate the process being laid out, and just as a reminder, I mean, we've been hearing these presentations by each department for a month plus, something like that. We've had some very long Wednesdays. And so I would urge, I guess, the public to take a look at those. So I appreciate that. Did you say the price of asphalt went up 72%? I just want to.
In 5 years, yeah.
In 5 years, okay. That's crazy. My comment is that's crazy. But I also wanted to just get some clarification. Being a Ward 3 or Ward 4, sorry, I can't remember my ward representative. For the Johnson Street shelter, the proposal would have, you said, additional garbage cleanup around it, which would be specific for not just, the trash, Republic Services coming through your alley, but we would actually be having some mitigation efforts in the neighborhood for refuse that is left around. Is that correct?
And so the proposal is for additional private security assistance through our security contractor, and that would be through the Parks District and the Roads District in order to provide security in our park system and in our rights of way. And so this new focus would allow a little bit more of that in the neighborhood in a way that I think would mitigate some of the impacts in the neighborhood. We also are making some site improvements that will make the site function better. Those will be going to the MRA board soon, and also to council, and those will include improved restroom facilities. Again, with the knowledge that this is a temporary facility, so they're not permanent. Really permanent improvements, but we will be looking to make improvements in terms of restrooms and shower facilities and improvements to the outdoor spaces so that there's more, less real reason to leave the site. We also will, of course, work on the policy side. When we bring back the urban camping resolution, we'll have opportunities to look at buffer zones and other things that will have impact to the neighborhood. We've been really working on a lot of the nuts and bolts of how to do this. We will have a series of public meetings that we'll be announcing sometime in the next several days, and those will be in the. And I appreciate Councilwoman Jordan for helping with that, and our communications staff for helping get those going. But we will be getting those pulled together toward the end of the month, as well as some open houses on the site at Johnson Street as well. We'll be presenting to the Midtown Association and some of the more business-oriented groups as well, and trying to understand any concerns that they may have as far as how we go about the security programming.
That's great. I had a few questions about it, but I think you answered all those. So I appreciate the clarity that as of right now that we're trying to bring it up to compliance and do these mitigation efforts on that site, that it is as of right now that it is the thought is for it to be a temporary site. This is not a permanent thing, as it's not permanent funding, and I really appreciate the clarification on looking into some buffer zones for the urban camping, and just being thoughtful about the impact on the neighborhood.
We'll also be bringing a public forum through our land use process. So this is in order to speak to the zoning compliance, we'll be bringing that through as well. And that's something that is contemplated this year, since it's not just a wintertime use, but since it's a little bit of a different use.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Vasecka?
Thank you. I'm only going to bring this up if my internet is okay. Can you hear me good?
We can.
Or well, okay. So since Ms. Sherrill brought it up and it was presented in your budget, Mr. Mayor, and it is a huge topic, I wanted to point out that Johnson Street Shelter is illegal according to the Missoula Municipal Code, Title 20, Chapter 40.045, Part A, Number 3, that states that an emergency homeless shelter location shall be located a minimum distance of 300 feet from a residential zoning district, as measured from property line to closest residential district boundary line. And I measured the distance very haphazardly, and being generous, it's less than 100 feet from the Johnson Street shelter property line from residential zoning 2.7, which is residential high. And I inquired with the city legal team and was told that my interpretation of the Missoula Municipal Code was correct and that the city could amend that code provision. So I just wanted to, I guess my goal is to hold us as the city to the same rules that we expect private citizens to do. And I just wanted to state this on the public record for full transparency. I understand that we're not going to deal with this tonight or in the next week, but I just wanted it on the record that I think that we have to deal with this in our code to hold us as a city to the same accountability that we hold the rest of the city to. So I just wanted to let a lot of the folks know that are really concerned about the Johnson Street shelter that I'm looking out for you. I'm just trying to get everything transparent on record, and I hear a lot of your concerns. Kristen and I hear a lot of your concerns, and we're trying to make it right for everybody. So I just wanted to get that known.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ms. Vasecka. And that was the public forum that I referenced, and appreciate you flagging that. And again, this is something that we'll bring forward in the coming weeks. Additional questions or comments from council? Okay, we will hold this open and see you all on Wednesday for final budget presentation with the taxable values. And we can move on to our final public hearing. This is the annual assessments for Street Maintenance District Number 1, and Ms. Rabine has our staff presentation.
I do. Thank you, Mayor Hess. So this is an annual assessment that I have been bringing to City Council my whole career. So this is my last staff report for Street Maintenance District Number 1. City Council members, Street Maintenance District Number 1 is located in the downtown area. It has existed since the very early days of the city. It was originally a sprinkling district when the streets downtown were dirt, and it was used to wet them down so they wouldn't be so dusty. It's evolved with the modern day times. And so now Street Maintenance District Number 1 involves extra street sweeping services by the City Street Division. The streets downtown, as most folks know who either live or work down here, are swept once a week on Tuesdays, and that's a lot more frequently than other areas of the city. So that's a special service that is provided and recovered by this district, by the City Street Division. In addition, if you've ever visited downtown and put recyclables in a recycling bin that's located on the city streetscape, or maybe trash in a trash container, those trash bins are managed and maintained by the Business Improvement District under contract with the city, and we pay for those contracted services through this district, and that involves emptying those bins so that they don't get too really full during our busy season. In the summer, they empty them on a much more frequent basis than they do in the winter, because we love being outdoors in Missoula, Montana in the summer, especially in our downtown. So this year, the Downtown Business Improvement District has expanded the number of waste receptacles and recycling receptacles in this district, and they've asked for a modest increase to cover the services to take care of those cans. And so that's a 1% increase. The street division, as you've probably heard, has increased costs related to labor, and especially their equipment and fuel, and equipment hours. And so we are looking at an increase in this district over last year. Last year's assessment was $135,732.35. This year, we're looking at and asking council to increase that assessment by 3.94% to $141,084.38. And I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll open the public hearing on the Street Maintenance District Number 1. This is a downtown only district. Anyone who cares to comment can come on up. All right. Anyone online? Seeing none, we'll hold this public hearing open until next week. Any questions from council? Okay, seeing none. That concludes our public hearings. And we have no items up for final or for under committee reports tonight, nor do we have any items of new business. Communications from the mayor. I just want to extend my condolences about Jack Rowan passing away this last week. Jack was a real special member of our community, just a very kind, wonderful human, and passed away after a battle with ALS, and will be greatly missed on the north side and west side, but throughout the community. And thinking of Jack and all the people that were close to him. And we can start tonight on my left with Mr. Nugent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will pass tonight.
Thanks, Ms. Savage.
I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlino.
I can pass, thanks.
Ms. Vasecka.
Just want to say I apologize. I'm not there in person, but I'll see you next week. I'll pass after that.
Thank you. Mr. Contos.
I will not pass. Just a little something about getting out of yourself and out of your comfort zone. I had that experience this weekend. As a lot of you know, my wife's a runner, and we went down to Hamilton for the Roberts Run. And of course, I didn't want to go, but being a supportive husband, I went anyway, and got talked into doing the 1 mile run. The neat thing about it is I got to meet Galen Brupp, who is a 4-time Olympic champion. And it was just amazing meeting this guy. My wife was acting like a little groupie. She was so excited, jumping up and down. And I went up to him, said a couple of things. I ran into him like 5 times, and that was a real treat. Great guy. Plus, there was a lot of sheriffs and police there, and I also got to meet Stephen Slovitz, whoever the chief of police is down there. And I told him I wasn't going to remember his name. But the idea was I got out of my comfort zone, and I felt like I was richly rewarded for that. It's kind of like city council. Thank you.
Ms. Sherrill.
I'll pass. Thanks.
Ms. Becerra.
I'll pass. Thank you.
Ms. Jordan.
I'll pass. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Jones.
I just briefly also wanted to mention Jack Rowan. I did not know Jack Rowan really well. I was not in his inner circle, but I was kind of in an outer circle, and I am so grateful that I did get to know him over the last 8 years. Frankly, I had more interaction with him in the last 6 months after his diagnosis came through, and I signed up to help bring meals, which I only did one thing. Everybody would sign up so quickly. That's the kind of person Jack was. But he would send out these beautiful emails as he was dying. And those emails taught me so much. So I will be forever grateful that Jack was in our world, and Missoula really lost a good one. So I think Jack's lessons were an incredibly positive outlook on life based on love and finding the humor at times, but also just looking at our world with awe. And I will try and remind myself of those things on a more regular basis.
Ms. Farmer.
I just wanted to quickly give a shout out to the Parks and Rec department, to Donna and Meg and their staff. I was picking my kids up from the climbing camp this week, and I was just thinking how lucky we are to have such an awesome program. I imagine I don't know the numbers, it's probably in the thousands of kids that they have every day. And as summer's winding down, I just was thinking we're just so lucky to have such a great program. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the Parks and Rec staff.
Ms. Anderson.
Thanks so much. Here to that, Ms. Farmer. It's the great program. And thank you, Ms. Jones, and Mr. Mayor, for talking about Jack. And just, it's amazing to see Missoula and community come together, and when people are in need and towards the end of their life. And I think it's just, the world is hard these days, and things like that give you hope and humanity. And just may we all be so lucky to have such a close and caring and inner circle when we reach the end of our lives. So on that note, slightly awkward transition, but I just encourage everybody who wasn't able to tune in and watch the Public Safety and Health and Operations Committee meeting from last week. It was really informative about why it is at this particular time we're coming forward with a fire levy to the voters in Missoula this fall, and kind of really the turning point that we are at in our community with providing that basic level of service that is needed. And this isn't a kind of a fluffy thing. This is the matter of life or death. And our first responders in the fire department do a heroic job, and they are supporting us on our hardest days, and we need to in turn support them and really support the broader community, because we are at the point where we cannot continue to sustain the trajectory of call volume to the fact that we haven't added any operational personnel, and just kind of the wide continuum of care that they give to people from unhoused to fighting the actual fires and everything in between. And I think that the presentation that the department put together really kind of highlighted why it is that we're at the juncture. And I appreciate the public comments about kind of being mindful of our tax burden and how finding different sources of revenue. And I joke that you need to come to Miss Jones and I's TED Talk about taxes, but I almost we should record it, because it is incredibly frustrating, and I think it brings it home. And this time when we're finalizing the budget and we understand the impacts and on the people that are call Missoula home, that we're asking more and more of them, and we are also getting to a tipping point that we need to address fundamental tax reform at the legislative level. And I will continue to advocate for that. Ms. Jones will be joining me in the 2025 legislative session, but as we can't just think about it only during tax season or finalizing the budget and property tax season. This is something that is systemically hurting our ability to really provide those basic and level services, which is why now we have no other choice but to go for a levy to help expand our ability in the fire department. And that shouldn't be necessarily the way we have to do things. We have no other choice than we are now, but there really does need to be some serious changes made at the legislative level. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Ms. West.
So I am going to remind everyone that the fair will be happening this week. Tomorrow is the last day to get discounted tickets. So if you want to go to the rodeo or see any of the other ticketed events, they are $5 cheaper through tomorrow. And if you want to pick up week passes for your children, I assume most people going to the carnival all week are children. Those are available at the fair office. And then the day ride as many rides as you want passes are available at the Noon's gas stations. For everyone who's doing 4-H and FFA, fair started on Saturday. And so far it's been a pretty amazing feat of logistics. And I just want to thank all the people in the background that are making this event possible for our kids. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. West. We have no additional items on our agenda. I will highlight our standing administratively approved agreement report for your consideration and bedtime reading. Thanks to members of the public for attending and for your interest, and thanks council members and staff for your service. We'll be adjourned.